You're listening to PODWOM, Podcast Without Measure, the podcast edition of the official e-zine for the International Size Acceptance Association. In Austin, Texas, here is your host, Alan Stedham.
You guys like Italian?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. I love Italian. And so do you.
Yes.
Hello and welcome to PODWOM. This is Alan Stedham, and I was trying to think of the best way to introduce my special guest for this show, and for some reason, that particular scene from Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home just jumped out at me. But instead of reading off a list of his accomplishments in film and photography, acting in general, and a career spanning more than 40 years, what I would prefer to do is let the man speak for himself. So without further ado, I am delighted to introduce Leonard Nimoy. Let's start with the Full Body Project. Please tell me how you came up with the idea and how it developed.
Well, I was showing some earlier work, some work from a book that I published called Shekhinah, and at a seminar in Northern California. And when I was done, a lady approached me and introduced herself and said that she was a model and a different body type than what I had been working with and what I'd be interested in working with her. And she was a larger woman, indeed much larger than what I had used in the past. And I agreed to have a go at it and try it. She came to my studio. My wife and I photographed her. She's in the book. She's in the Full Body Project book. She's the lady who's lying horizontal against a black background. Subsequently, whenever I showed any of my work and included images of her, she got a lot of attention. People were unused to seeing classic nude photographs of a body of that type. And she looked, I thought, extraordinary, like marble sculpture in black and white. And I was intrigued with the amount of attention that she got, and I decided to pursue it. And I contacted, through some friends, I contacted Heather McAllister in San Francisco, who had a group that she called the Fat Bottom Review. And I made a date to fly to San Francisco and to photograph her and some of her dancers. That was the basis for the book.
What effect did the project have on you as a professional and as a person?
Well, it broke open some new ideas to me, obviously, in terms of what I was photographing and what my perception was, what my vision was of the female figure. I learned a lot. I did some investigation and had some conversations with various people, including Heather McAllister, and I learned a lot about how beauty is so culture-driven and the obsession with thinness in our culture. The models who wear the clothes that are being sold to women typically weigh 25% less than the average American woman. Women are told they don't look right, and they should try to achieve that model's look. And in order to do that, they're being sold various kinds of products. They're being sold pills and diet programs and exercise programs and even surgery. So I learned, I think, quite a bit about the prevalence of body concern in our culture.
One of the things I was wondering is if you now, do you see yourself as an activist, and why or why not?
I think I've said my piece on this subject. I'm moving on. I'm on to other projects now. It isn't a why or why not. It's just that I found that area intriguing, just as I found feminism and Jewish mysticism intriguing, and I did a book about that called Shekhinah. I'm no longer, I don't consider myself an activist in that territory, nor do I consider myself an activist in the body image territory.
Okay. Then on a lighter note, let's give ahead to you reprising your role as Mr. Spock in the new Star Trek movie.
Right.
I try not to give too many spoilers for our listeners. We still want them to see the film, but needless to say, your role was quite extensive. What led you to become involved? The script or something else?
I was contacted by the director, J.J. Abrams, I had a meeting with he and his writers, Robert Orsi and Alice Kurtzman. We had a very intense conversation about what Star Trek was all about, what Mr. Spock was all about. Spock character had been marginalized for some time during the former regime, the people who were making the Next Generation series and all those other series that followed the original had marginalized Spock, and that was okay with me. I had gone off and done a lot of other different kinds of work, but here these people came and led me to understand that they really appreciated what the original Star Trek was about and what the Spock character was about. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to tell a story in which Spock would play be an important factor. I was actually really quite touched by their sincerity and their understanding of what Spock had contributed to Star Trek. Mm-hmm. I agreed that I would at least be interested enough to read their script when it was done. Mm-hmm. And they went ahead with that understanding, and they wrote the script. When I got it, I was quite pleased with it, and I contacted Mr. Abrams and I told him that I would act in the film.
Had you met or worked with any of the cast before?
No, I didn't know any of the cast. I had not met Chris Pine, or Zachary Quinto, or Winona Ryder, or Ben Cross, or Carl Urban, Eric Bana. No, I didn't know any of them. Was the first time for me.
So what was it like working with so many new faces, playing Kirk, Corey, Scotty?
Well, I felt like the old timer who shows up and the young people in the cast were appropriately intimidated. They're wonderful people. They're all very talented. I enjoyed working with each and every one of them. I admire what they have accomplished. I've been asked a lot about my opinion of Zachary Quinto. I think he's an extremely intelligent and talented gentleman, looks enough like me to make the connection, and more important, he has a lot of craft and intelligence, and I think his performance was excellent.
I would agree. I saw the movie, and I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Now, you've written books on this subject, but right here, right now, for our listeners, will a part of you always be Spock? And what does that mean to you?
Oh, there's no question about it. There's no question about it. There's no escaping that, and not that I want to. Mm-hmm. But there's no question that would be my strongest identification, would be with the Spock character. Mm-hmm. It has been a blessing to me in that since Star Trek went on the air in 1966, I have never needed to worry about finding a job. I've always had places where I could go and work, in the theater and the television and the films, and all over the United States and a number of foreign countries as well. So I've been able to make a living as an actor for all these years, which is I consider a blessing. And I'm very grateful for all the opportunities that Star Trek and Mr. Spock have given me.
Wonderful. You've done numerous voice acting and voiceover roles in animated movies in recent years.
Right.
What do you consider before agreeing to a voiceover part? Does it pose any unique challenges that differ from other forms of acting?
Well, I read the scripts to look for the acting opportunity. What opportunity does it offer me, and how will I approach this role? Is it something that I think I can do creatively and successfully? Usually, I would say most of the time when I'm offered a particular voiceover role, it is because the people know my voice and know the kind of persona that my voice projects, and they have gone through their own casting ideas, and very often they're right. There's a role there that I could manage. I haven't been asked to do voices of characters or creatures that are so outside my range that I have to say no, I can't do that. It's unlikely that I would be offered that kind of a role.
I understand. A few months ago, I listened to your recording of Too Young for Yiddish.
Yes.
And, I really appreciated the warmth and the personality that you gave to Richard Michelson's story. Please tell our listeners about it.
Well, the book is a lovely book. Rich Michelson, the author, is a very good friend of mine. He also happens to operate a very good gallery, an art gallery in Northampton, Massachusetts, where he shows my work, and that was the connection. But he's an award-winning poet and writer. I admire his writing, I admire his work, and I was moved by the content of that book. I think it's a very good one, and I was very flattered and honored to be asked to do the voice.
And Rich, what's the number one thing you'd like people to know about you that perhaps is not something commonly known?
Well, after all these years as a public person, I don't think there's an awful lot that people don't know about me. I have always tried to find my way in the arts. It's sometimes challenging. It's sometimes surprisingly exciting, and sometimes surprisingly disappointing. But that's the way it is in the arts. It is not a clear-cut scientific process. You operate in the dark a lot of the time, looking. I've said sometimes that starting out on an artistic project is like entering a dark room where there are holes in the floor, and somewhere in that room there's a light switch, and you have to find that light switch to illuminate the place. And obviously there are dangers involved because of the holes in the floor, and there's a great excitement in the expectation that you might find the switch. And when you do find the switch and turn the light on, there's great satisfaction. That's what the artistic process is all about.
You've always got some projects going on. Tell us about the one for involving the secret selves.
This is a project that I'm particularly pleased with. We rounded up a lot of people by invitation in Massachusetts and invited them to come to be photographed by me, to have their portrait photographed by me, to come to the session bringing for the camera their secret or hidden or fantasy self that I would photograph. And over a period of a few days, we photographed 95 people. We have narrowed that down to 25 of the most successful. They were wonderful people, all of them. They came with open hearts, and some were very funny, some were very touching, some were very unique and exciting. And that collection will be showing next year at this time at the Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art in North Adams, Massachusetts, as an exhibition called Secret Selves. And some of those images are available now on my website, which is leonardnimoyphotography.com. It's listed there under the title of The Identity Project, so people can take a look and see what those images look like. In addition to the prints, which will be hanging for people to see, there's also a 40-minute video documentary of my conversations with all of these people, which I think is quite exciting. So I'm really pleased about this because it is my first solo exhibition in a major museum in the United States.
Well, congratulations, sir. It sounds exciting, and it must have been particularly interesting seeing, with these different people and how they chose to express themselves. Or
I really didn't quite know what to expect. There was the experience was full of wonderful surprises.
What other things do you have sort of charted for the future projects?
This is what I'm working on at the moment, although of course I'm committed to do some appearances on the Fringe television series. I've already filmed an appearance in 2 episodes. One aired a couple of months ago, and one will air in October. I'm playing a character called William Bell, who was referred to during the first season, but never seen until the very last scene of the very last episode where I made an appearance. Very interesting character, and Fringe is a unique series. I find it exciting. I think the writers are very clever and very talented. It's a very well-produced show. So I'm looking forward to doing some more of that.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
You're very, very welcome. I'm sorry it took so long to get back to you, but it's been a little hectic, with the film and the other work and so forth, but I'm delighted to be able to get this done.